The sun hung low over rural Pennsylvania, bleeding orange and gold across abandoned farmland. 5 motorcycles tore through the valley, their engines shattering the evening silence. Jake led the pack, his leather jacket flapping behind him like wings. Behind him rode Marcus, Tyler, Devin, and Chris, brothers in adrenaline, bound by the thrill of the ride. They pulled off onto a gravel shoulder, where a weather-beaten sign stood half-consumed by kudzu vines. Jake killed his engine and pulled off his helmet, grinning. "Dead Man's Stretch," he read aloud, squinting at the faded letters. "Perfect name for a road, right?" Marcus swung off his bike, frowning. "Jake, you know what the guy at the gas station said. This road's been closed for decades." "Closed to cars," Tyler corrected, slapping Marcus's shoulder. "Not to us." Chris crouched into the rusted chain blocking the road's entrance. "Look at this," he said, running his finger along deep grooves in the asphalt. "What could do that? It's like something dragged across the pavement." Devin laughed nervously. "Probably just old construction equipment. Come on, man. You're not buying into the legend, are you?" "What legend?" Marcus asked. Jake's grin widened. "Oh, you didn't hear? Old Pete at the station told me. Back in 1952, they built this road over an abandoned coal mine. But they didn't just seal the mine, they used it. Dumped all the old machinery down there. Conveyor belts, crushers, drills, tons of it. Then poured asphalt over the top." "So?" Chris said. "So," Jake continued, 3 months after they opened the road, a school bus broke down right in the middle of it. Engine just died. When the driver tried to restart it, the whole road collapsed. Every single kid on that bus, 23 of them, fell into the machinery below." Silence fell over the group. Tyler scoffed. "That's just small-town bullshit, man. Scary stories to keep people away." But Marcus's face had gone pale. Did they recover the bodies?" Jake shook his head slowly. "Some of them. Not all. The mine was too unstable. They sealed what was left and abandoned the road." He paused, then added quietly, "Pete said sometimes people still hear the gears turning down there, at night." A cold breeze swept through the trees. Marcus shivered. "Maybe we should find another road." "Are you serious?" Jake laughed. "It's been 70 years, bro. If it was gonna collapse, it would have by now." He kicked the rusted chain aside. "Besides, when are we gonna get another chance to ride a road this empty?" Devin nodded, already remounting his bike. "I'm in. Best run we'll have all year." Chris hesitated, then followed. Yeah, let's do it." They guided their motorcycles around the chain and onto the cracked pavement. The road stretched ahead, disappearing into thick woods. The trees on either side leaned inward, their branches forming a tunnel of shadow. That's when they saw her. A little girl stood at the edge of the tree line, maybe 30 feet ahead. She couldn't have been older than 10. Her dress was pale blue, torn and stained, and her dark hair hung in tangled strands around her face. But it was her eyes that stopped them cold. Wide, unblinking, filled with unmistakable terror. "Hey," Jake called out, his voice uncertain. "You okay, kid?" She didn't respond, just stared at them, trembling. Jake felt his pulse quicking. Something's wrong. Why would a kid be out here alone? The girl's mouth opened. When she spoke, her voice was small but carried clearly in the windless air. "Don't start your bikes." The 5 friends exchanged glances. Tyler laughed, the sound harsh and forced. "What?" "Don't start them here," the girl said again, now louder, desperate. "Please, don't." Jake revved his engine, the sudden roar making the girl flinch violently. "Relax, kid, we're just passing through."
"No!" she screamed, her voice cracking. She stepped forward, her small fists clenched. "The vibrations! They'll wake it up! Please, you have to listen!" "Wake what up?" Marcus asked, but his question was drowned out by Tyler's engine roaring to life. The girl's face transformed from fear to absolute horror. Her hands flew to her mouth as she stumbled backward. "No! No! No!" she whispered, shaking her head frantically. Then she turned and ran into the woods, disappearing among the trees like smoke. For a moment, nobody moved. "That was weird," Chris said quietly. "She's probably just some local kid messing with us," Jake said, though his voice lacked its usual confidence, trying to scare the outsiders. But Marcus was staring at the spot where she'd vanished. "Did you see her feet?" "What?" Devin asked. "Her feet. When she ran." Marcus's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "They didn't touch the ground." "Stop it!" Tyler snapped. "You're freaking yourself out over nothing." Jake kicked his bike into gear. "Come on, daylight's burning." One by one, they started their engines. The combined roar echoed off the trees, swallowing every other sound. The evening birds went silent. Even the wind died. And beneath them, something answered. It was subtle at first, a faint vibration that traveled up through their tires. Marcus felt it in his handlebars, a tremor that made his teeth ache. He glanced down at the asphalt and froze. The road was moving, not much, just a slight ripple, like water disturbed by a stone. But it was enough. "Guys," he called out, "did you feel—" Jake gunned his throttle and shot forward, Tyler right behind him. Devin and Chris followed, their laughter cutting through the engine noise. Marcus hesitated, his every instinct screaming at him to turn back. But pride, stupid, stubborn pride, made him twist the throttle and follow his friends into the darkening woods. The road seemed to swallow them whole. Behind them, the girl stood at the edge of the trees once more, visible only for a moment. She wasn't running anymore, just watching, waiting. And beneath the cracked asphalt, deep in the abandoned mine, ancient machinery groaned to life. The first tremor hit 30 seconds after they crossed into the deeper woods. Marcus felt it through his handlebars, a sharp vibration that made his fillings ache. Then came the sound, a deep, grinding groan from somewhere below, like metal scraping against stone in the belly of the earth. "Jake!" he shouted. "Stop! Something's—" The road beneath Devin's front tire cracked. It happened fast. A hairline fracture appeared in the asphalt, then spread like lightning, branching outward in a spiderweb pattern. Devin's bike wobbled. His headlight flickered once, twice, then died completely. "What the—" Devin's voice cut off as his engine sputtered and went silent. The other four skidded to a halt, their bikes forming a loose circle around them. "Devin, what's wrong?" Chris called out. "I don't know, it just died." Devin frantically twisted the ignition. Nothing. "Come on! Come on!" A metallic screech erupted from beneath them, so loud it felt like it came from inside their skulls. Jake's hands flew to his ears. Tyler stumbled off his bike, eyes wide. Then the road began to move. At first it was subtle, a gentle undulation, like the ground was breathing. But within seconds the asphalt buckled violently. A chunk the size of a car tire lifted upward, then crashed back down, sending cracks racing in every direction. "Get off the road!" Jake screamed. They abandoned their bikes and ran, all except Devin, who was still trying desperately to restart his engine. His hand shook on the ignition, sweat dripping down his face, despite the sudden cold. "Devin, leave it!" Marcus shouted, running back toward him. "Leave the bike!" Devin looked up, eyes meeting Marcus's. For a moment, understanding passed between them, the same understanding they'd shared since they were kids, riding their first dirt bikes in Marcus's backyard. Then the ground beneath Devin collapsed. It didn't crumble. It opened, like a trapdoor hinged on nothing, a perfect rectangle of asphalt that simply fell away into darkness. Devin's bike went first, tumbling into the void without a sound. Devin lunged forward, trying to jump clear, but his foot caught on the edge. He went down hard, fingers scrabbling at the crumbling asphalt. "Marcus!" His scream was raw, primal. "Help me!" Marcus dove forward, sliding on his stomach across the road. His hand caught Devon's wrist just as his friend slipped over the edge. The weight nearly pulled Marcus in with him. "I got you," Marcus gasped. "I got you! Don't let go!" Jake grabbed Marcus's legs, anchoring him. Tyler and Chris rushed over, all of them forming a human chain on the disintegrating road. "Pull!" Jake shouted. They pulled. For one beautiful, hopeful second, Devon rose an inch out of the hole. Then, something below grabbed him. Marcus felt it, a sudden, violent jerk that nearly dislocated his shoulder. Devon's eyes went wide with shock and pain. "Something's got my leg," he whispered, voice tight with terror. "Something's got me! Something's got me!" He was yanked downward with such force that Marcus's grip broke. Devon fell screaming into the darkness. The sound that came next would haunt the survivors for the rest of their lives. First, the wet crunch of impact, bone meeting metal at high speed. Then, the mechanical grinding, like gears the size of cars beginning to turn. And finally, Devon's scream, not fading with distance, but cutting off mid-breath with a sound like paper tearing. Marcus crawled to the edge and looked down. The hole descended at least 30 feet into an underground cavern. Ancient machinery filled the space, massive conveyor belts studded with metal teeth, hydraulic crushers, drill assemblies that looked like iron forests. Everything was rusted orange and brown, covered in decades of grime and decay. And everything was moving. The machinery had awakened. Gears rotated, belts lurched forward in fits and starts, pistons pumped up and down with arthritic slowness. In the center of it all, caught between two grinding gears, was Devon. Marcus saw his friend's face for just a moment, saw his mouth open in a silent scream, saw his arm reach up toward the light. Then the gears completed their rotation, and Devon was pulled into the machinery like paper into a shredder. The grinding continued for 5 more seconds, then stopped. Silence fell over Dead Man's Stretch. Marcus crawled backward from the edge, his face white, hands trembling so badly he couldn't make a fist. He opened his mouth, but no words came out, only a thin, keening wail that didn't sound human. "We have to go," Jake said, his voice hollow. "We have to go now." More cracks were appearing, racing outward from the central hole like veins. The entire road was collapsing, section by section, revealing the honeycomb of abandoned mine shafts below. Cold mist rose from the openings, carrying the smell of rust and old earth, and something else, something that smelled like burnt copper and fear. They ran. Behind them, the road fell away in chunks, each collapse triggering the machinery below to grind and screech. The woods pressed in from both sides, branches reaching like fingers. The mist thickened until they could barely see 5 feet ahead. Tyler tripped over a protruding piece of metal and went down hard. Chris hauled him up without stopping. Blood ran down Tyler's leg, but he didn't seem to notice. Marcus kept running even as tears blurred his vision. "I had him. I had his hand. I had him." "There!" Jake pointed ahead. Through the mist, they could see where the forest ended, the safe section of road bathed in pale moonlight. 50 feet, 40, 30. A final crack opened directly in their path. Jake leaped over it without breaking stride. Chris and Tyler followed. Marcus jumped last, barely clearing the gap as the edges crumbled behind him. They stumbled onto solid ground and collapsed, gasping, sobbing, shaking. When Marcus finally looked back, the road they'd escaped from was gone. Just a long, gaping wound in the earth, machinery grinding away in the depths. The mist poured from it like blood from a wound, and standing at the edge of the chasm, illuminated by moonlight, was the little girl.
She looked at them with sad, ancient eyes. This close, Marcus could see through her, could see the trees behind her translucent form. "You're—" Chris's voice cracked. "You're one of them. From the bus." The girl nodded slowly. When she spoke, her voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. 23 of us. We tried to warn everyone we could, but no one ever listens." She looked down at the machinery churning below. "Now he's down there too, with us, forever." "No," Marcus whispered. "No, he can't be." "The machinery doesn't stop," the girl said softly. "It never stops, not for 70 years. She turned her gaze back to them, and for the first time Marcus saw not fear in her eyes, but pity. "You should go now, before the road decides it wants more." She began to fade, her form dissolving into the mist. "Wait!" Marcus called out. "What's your name?" The ghost paused, barely visible now. "Sarah. Sarah Mitchell. I was 9 years old." Then she was gone. They walked in silence back to where they'd left their truck, miles away. None of them spoke. There were no words for what they'd witnessed, no way to explain Devon's death that wouldn't sound insane. As dawn broke over Pennsylvania, Jake pulled out his phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. He reported an accident on Dead Man's Stretch. The dispatcher said they'd send someone to investigate. But Marcus knew they wouldn't find anything. The road would be intact again by morning, waiting patiently for the next group of riders who didn't believe in warnings. 3 days later, Marcus stood at Devon's funeral, staring at the closed casket. Accidental death, the official report said, fell into an abandoned mine shaft. They'd found just enough of him to make that determination. At night, Marcus still heard it, the grinding of gears, the wet crunch of impact, Devon's scream cutting off mid-breath. He heard it when he closed his eyes. He heard it in the silence between heartbeats. And sometimes, late at night, he heard the little girl's voice. "The machinery doesn't stop. It never stops. Not for 70 years. Jake sold his motorcycle the next week. Tyler moved out of state. Chris developed a drinking problem. But Marcus did something different. Once a month, he drove back to Dead Man's Stretch. He parked at the entrance and waited. Whenever he saw someone approaching the closed road, bikers mostly, young and cocky and invincible, he stepped into their path. "Don't go down there," he'd say, voice urgent. "Please, listen to me. Don't start your bikes on that road." Most ignored him. Some laughed. But occasionally, just occasionally, someone would see the haunted look in his eyes and turn back. And on those nights, Marcus would glimpse a small figure at the edge of the woods, a little girl in a pale blue dress. She never smiled, but she'd nod, just once, before fading back into the trees. Some warnings come too late, but Marcus had learned the lesson that Devon paid for with his life. When someone desperate tries to save you, you listen, even if it means looking like a fool, even if it means living with regret, because regret, Marcus had discovered, was the only thing heavier than that final, grinding silence.